Well, it's wonderful to be back in this extraordinary church. Some of you maybe were here at the conference that Trinity sponsored in 2009, where I had the privilege of launching Agenda for a New Economy, which was essentially about the need to replace Wall Street. You could imagine that launching the book calling for the end of Wall Street from this podium looking down Wall Street was quite an extraordinary event in my life. Thomas Berry, the late beloved theologian, observed in Dream of the Earth that the deepest crises experienced by any society are those moments when the sacred story by which it understands the universe and the human role in the universe becomes inadequate for meeting the survival demands of its present situation. Ours is such a moment. We humans are living beings. As is true for all living beings, we survive and thrive only as members of a sacred earth community evolving toward ever greater complexity, beauty, awareness, and possibility. Thomas Berry also pointed out the very practical truth that our human economy is derivative from the earth economy. To glory in a rising gross domestic product with an irreversibly declining earth product is an economic absurdity. That absurdity is a central tenet of the economics that has become the defining religion of our time. Thomas might well have added that the absurdity is compounded by the fact that gross domestic product is also accompanied by accelerating growth and extreme inequality, social breakdown, and political corruption. It all traces to a story that would have us believe that life is merely a commodity, that money is wealth, and that money and markets are the proper objects of our individual and societal sacred veneration. We humans live by stories. We have a deep yearning for sacred stories that explain our existence, give our lives meaning, and serve as our guide to what is truly important and worthy of our respect and care. One familiar example is the religious story of an all-knowing, all-powerful, distant patriarch who by his will created all that is and rules it from afar. In this story, it is an article of faith that this God is the sacred source of all agency and meaning. Another story is the science story of a grand machine universe that mechanistically plays out its destiny as its spring unwinds. In this story, objective knowledge and the scientific method are sacred. And it is an article of faith that a combination of mechanism and chance fully explain the dynamic processes of creation. By this story, any appearance that conscious, intelligent agency may be involved is dismissed as illusion. These versions of the distant patriarch and grand machine stories that stand in direct opposition to one another, are carryovers from simpler times, times before we humans posed a planetary scale threat to our sacred Earth Mother, before advanced communications technologies linked humans into a seamless web of communication and potentially a web of common understanding, before economic and political power became concentrated in global financial markets that operate beyond human accountability, before science discovered quantum physics, evolutionary biology, and life's extraordinary capabilities for self-organization. Simple stories based on only a thin slice of reality and understanding no longer serve. We must recognize and accept responsibility for our human agency, for our numbers, our technologies, our material expectations. We must learn to live as responsible contributing members of a sacred earth community and bring ourselves into balance with the generative systems of our living Earth Mother. In most instances, the stories by which we live are so ingrained into the culture and fabric of our daily lives, we are mostly not aware of their enormous influence, including the influence of stories that no longer serve and that most of us no longer truly believe. The human mind can and does become an unwitting and unaware prisoner to obsolete stories that lead to deeply self-destructive behavior. As the old distant patriarch and grand machine stories lost salience and credibility, we became susceptible to what has become the reigning sacred story of contemporary society, the story of sacred money and markets. This story serves powerful interests with enormous influence over our primary institutions of cultural reproduction, including religion, media, and education. And it thus enjoys the sponsorship of those interests. By the reckoning of the sacred money and market story, money is the measure of wealth, and those who make money create wealth. The invisible hand of the market becomes the equivalent of the hand of God. The brutal competition for financial gain becomes a beneficial expression of an assumed Darwinian competition for survival and dominance that we are told to believe is the driver of evolutionary progress. This story provides not only the moral and intellectual justification for the destruction of life to make money, it leads us as a global society to celebrate that destruction as progress. It leads us all to yield power to institutions that value life only for its contribution to making money, and thereby we yield ultimate power to those least likely to use it to the benefit of Earth's sacred community of life. The Wall Street bankers who ply their trade just beyond the doors of this church. Simply attacking a destructive story, no matter how obviously morally and intellectually flawed, does not work. A flawed story can be banished only by replacing it with a more compelling story. A compelling sacred earth community story begins with the underlying spiritual unity of the whole of creation. To be adequate to the needs of our time, that story must acknowledge and offer a credible explanation for the creation and evolution of the cosmos and the living earth. It must as well acknowledge and offer a credible explanation for life's extraordinary complexity and capacity for cooperative, creative, adaptive, self-reliant organization. A compelling sacred earth community story must weave together the seemingly disparate narratives of indigenous wisdom, the teachings of the great spiritual teachers, the findings of science, the lessons of history, and the lessons of our daily experience. We have such a story, and there is evidence that it lives in the human heart. It must only be brought to the fore of public consciousness through a public conversation that ultimately engages the whole of humanity. By the reckoning of this story, all of creation is the expression of an integral spiritual intelligence engaged in a sacred journey of self-discovery, as it seeks to know itself and the possibilities through an ongoing process of becoming. Earth, the entire material universe of our experience, are more than God's creation. They are God made flesh. God is in the world, and the world is in God. We come to know the nature, purpose, and intention of this divine force through both our inner experience and our observation of its physical manifestation. The deeper observation of life reveals that it is a fundamentally cooperative enterprise. Life exists only in relation to other life. It exists only as a community of life. Those species that survive and thrive over the long term are in fact those that find their place of service to the whole. That is our human need of our time, to find our place of service to the whole. Extreme individualism, greed, and violence reveal physical, developmental, cultural, and institutional pathology. Caring relationships are the foundation of healthy families and communities. including our sacred earth community. We humans can choose to apply our distinctive capacities for reflective consciousness and choice, either to advance creation's evolutionary thrust toward ever greater creative possibility, or we can use that capability to temporarily disrupt that advance of creation's journey. Together, our individual choices determine our collective fate and shape the course of the journey far beyond our time. That we humans are naturally drawn to unsolved mysteries may be a key to discovering and fulfilling our place of service to the whole. We know not where the journey leads, nor whether a final destination is even a meaningful concept. The attraction is the inherent thrill of participating in a grand creative endeavor for which participation is its own reward.